That's funny. I don't remember anyone being scheduled to fly through the wormhole today.
Captain, it's a Dominion fleet. They're charging weapons.
It is time to leave.
Evac Protocol Alpha. Andrews, get everyone to shuttles. Prep the Defiant for launch. Blast it. The jem'hadar have cut off access to ops. Karen, you'll need to coordinate the evacuation. We'll get the delegates to the docking ring, and then I'll try to join you in ops.
So that came out of nowhere. We're going to have to escort the dignitaries to a ship to escape. With this many officials on the station, our goal has to be their safety first. Also, we're going to ignore the jem'hadar that should have probably died there. An emergency force field containing a fire covers the most expedient route, so we're going to have to make a full circle of the promenade to reach our escape. Throughout the station we can hear the sounds of jem'hadar disruptors, nasty weapons that can prevent coagulation. Okay, quick head count. Captains Kurland and Chon, Ambassador Stas and Sura, and Councillor Garrick. Right, let's get them out of here. On the way we can find a discarded phaser and pass it to Captain Kurland. This is something you can only spot if you're a tactical captain. The jem'hadar soldiers have taken up defensive positions around the promenade. Most corridors of DS9 pass through this ring, especially on the way to the critical areas such as the reactors and ops, so in many ways it's like holding the station by its throat. Ambassador Stas, an imposing Gorn, will engage the enemy even without a weapon, using his species' incredible strength and durability to simply rush them. The others are uncharacteristically not quite as handy in a pinch. We can see that on the upper levels similar firefights have broken out, but the station was in no way prepared for this sort of assault. I'm sure we've got eyes on the Gamma Quadrant end of the wormhole, and they didn't report anything. Speaking of eyes open, these jem'hadar are using their shrouding fields to cloak themselves. But biological invisibility doesn't protect from phaser fire. What on earth is going on? The scale of this assault is a declaration of war at the least, and the Treaty of Bajor has been in effect for the last 34 years and the Dominion has been abiding by it. Is this a rebel faction? We know there are Alpha Quadrant jem'hadar who have sided with Las and the new link he has created from the 100 found changelings, but again we've been keeping eyes on them too, and nothing suggested this sort of attack. I'm not even sure they have the numbers to pull it off. Good job Starfleet developed personal shielding, or we'd definitely be dead by now. We have to occasionally go back for the delegates after clearing the way ahead to make sure they're all still alive. Kurland has the phaser we found, but the others probably had to give up their weaponry before the meeting. We eventually reach the docking ring that houses the USS Daring, and it is of course filled with jem'hadar. We take cover behind some crates and begin to sweep the room. Damn, Shrouded, where are you? Oh, there's still others. Securing the dock, we're able to return to our ship and bring the delegates with us. Tarsi reports that the jem'hadar fleet is closing in and we need to disengage. Alright, the diplomats secured we pull away from DS9 and join the fray. Fighters swarm around the station, polaron beams streak by as the station's defences lance out into the void to seek their marks. And these smaller jem'hadar fighters aren't that powerful and can go down with some well-aimed hits, but there are just so many of them. We're acting to defend the station, but the defence is uncoordinated. Again, this was a complete surprise attack. When those immediately around the station have been destroyed, we're free to move off to intercept the groups that have targeted the other Federation ships in the vicinity. There are several other jem'hadar heavy escorts trading blows with the USS Belfast, Captain Sean's Defiant-class vessel. Fortunately, the Belfast has done a good job at weakening them, and the Daring is able to take them out when we close in. We also have to assist the USS Apaka, the Fletcher, and the Fiender. The Apaka is a Discovery class named for the famous Bajoran Kai, and the Fiender is named for a moon of Tellar. However, just as things begin to weigh in our favour, more ships arrive. This one warps in from outside of the system, and if I had to guess, some of the initial assault spread out to recon the system, and finding it not as defended as they expected, have returned to the station. It seems we're on par with these enemy ships, and that's good. During the Dominion War, such vessels were usually more than a match for a lone Starfleet vessel. Still, the station is once again swarming with fighters, and Commander Andrews calls us.
Captain Caroland, good to know that you and the delegates are safe. Jem'hadar have stormed the station and we're losing critical areas. The Defiant has launched and I've evacuated everyone possible, but a few of us stayed to...
Andrews? Andrews! Someone, answer me! What's going on?
Captain, my name is Loris, and I represent the Dominion. This station, and all remaining souls on it, are now under our control.
So, they are the Dominion. And Tarsi has been in contact with Starfleet during the battles and received new orders. We are to retreat to Bajor. I would very much like to stay for round 2, but several ships need extensive repairs. While the Belfast and Daring are fighting fit, the Apaka seems to be having issues, and we still have a room full of critical delegates. We can't really take them back into combat. A retreat to Bajor it is. On arriving, Commander Messi Achibi contacts us and is relaying orders to the surviving ships to form a defensive perimeter around Bajor. Whereas once the system was abandoned during the Dominion War to save its people, now it's a Federation world, and therefore under Starfleet protection. We'll also be receiving reinforcements that are being freed up as we speak. Bajor may be the heart of this system, but DS9 is the key and we need to take it back.
Of course we do. However, that is not a simple matter. Starfleet is routing all available ships here, and the Federation Council is contacting the Klingon Chancellor as well. We are also sending messages to the Gamma Quadrant in an attempt to open a dialogue with the Dominion. But we are fighting a war on multiple fronts. We have to consider the Borg, the Undine, and the Romulans, as well as the Klingons. It will take time to marshal our resources and plan a counterattack. You and your ship will be part of that plan. Until we are prepared, though, we need to do whatever we can to contain the jem'hadar fleet at DS9 and protect Bajor. Losing DS9 is bad enough. Losing a Federation world would be unthinkable.
Okay, so what's the situation down there?
We've evacuated everyone we could to Bajor, and we're setting up a base there to coordinate our counterattack against the Dominion. I won't lie to you, though. It's not gonna be easy. We were caught completely off guard by Karakan and his fleet, and the Bajorans are none too pleased to have house guests. We must balance the needs of the civilian populace with those of the Starfleet and Klingon forces currently on the surface. Starfleet needs all the help it can get planet-side right now. Transport down to our staging area on Bajor. You'll find me there. Captain Kurland will join us as soon as he can.
So, we have the Klingon crews that are attending the conference here too. As mentioned, this mission is set before the end of the Klingon War, and although hostilities have been decreasing, it's not actually over yet, so things could be getting tense down there. Now, what do we know? The jem'hadar commander is Karukan and his water handler is Loris, who claim to be part of the Dominion. However, all observations state otherwise. We've seen no ramping aggressions, and if Starfleet intelligence can identify Karukan so quickly, I doubt they missed an amassing army. Okay, enough speculation. Let's beam us and our delegates down. The transporter chief directs us to Commander Achibi. It's been a while since we visited Bajor, but unlike our last visit, this time things are a little more riled up. The locals of Hathon, this city, are none too happy to see masses of uniformed soldiers marching around and setting up camp in their town. During the occupation of 2357, the city was under the jurisdiction of Gul Morad Pirak, and his brutal enforcement of Cardassian law has left its scars. We find our way to the Starfleet office in an isolated town square and enter, passing a tactical map of DS9. Already the cogs of Starfleet are turning and plans being drawn up. Good. Alright, Commander, what do you got for me?
Time is short.
So's your hair. Sorry, I'm stressed. It happens. While Starfleet tacticians are drawing up plans and diplomats scramble to get a hold of the Dominion, we're tasked with helping down here. She tells us that Lieutenant Jirel Cav has a task list of concerns that we'll need to address. She's at the Federation Embassy opposite. Although I do outrank both these characters, they're merely relaying the orders from command and managing numerous requests, which is why we'll be reporting into them, so they can then notify their commanders, who probably do outrank me.
How can I help you?
She offers 2 missions to choose from, and both are equally necessary, although rather mundane. She was stationed on DS9 during the attack awaiting her new posting, but is now running ops here. One of her tasks is to reinforce the security firewalls of the Starfleet network, as it originally was not that high security. The other task is to patrol the streets and prevent brawls between the Klingons and Bajoran populace. This was quite easy to do. Most of the Klingons are simply seething at the idea that they were equally blindsided by the Dominion and are now hiding on a Federation world. Mostly we can talk them down by refocusing their anger at the Dominion and promising that there will be glory ahead when we retake the station, if they wanted. We tell them that there is no point in fighting the Bajorans here. It's dishonourable and it will only distract from the real battles ahead. When is all done, it takes a lot longer than I made it look, we return to Lieutenant Cav, who has brought out some old Starfleet training holoprograms from the Dominion War. These are now mandatory training for Starfleet captains to run. We can either choose to engage a squad of jem'hadar or fight a changeling. Well, we just had our fill of jem'hadar combat, so let's refresh ourselves with the shapeshifter battles. Alright, the simulation begins and we're inside a hangar of a Starfleet vessel. From the look of the nacelles visible from the open shuttle bay doors, it looks to be an early 2300s era vessel. I would say a Constitution refit, but the bay seems a little too wide, so maybe a Kobayashi Maru freighter. But then a Kobayashi freighter wouldn't need 2 runabouts. Oh my god, the runabouts are changelings! No, that's stupid. We set about looking for the changeling by applying a quantum stasis field to random objects. This would force it to lose its cohesion and it would revert to its gelatinous state. And finally we have a bite. The changeling turns into a solid to fight us. It's capable of covering large distances and uses melee attacks from its tentacles that it forms. Phase 1 of the battle is rather straightforward, as it bounds around assaulting us, and after taking enough damage it ups its game. Reverting to a more gooey form, it is less mobile but far more malleable. It can drag people over to it before lashing them with attacks. Now if you have any damage over time, AoEs, this is where they can be used effectively. The next phase then has the shapeshifter become more desperate, and he often focuses on a single target and attempts to smother them. Keeping up the assault eventually tires him out, or whatever the shapeshifter equivalent is, and he returns to a regenerative state where he attempts to slither away. This is where we need to capture him and seal it in a containment vessel. Job done. Having completed the training, we return to Cav.
I'm here to help.
The next simulation is a space combat program against either fighters or a Dominion capital ship. we choose to engage multiple fighter craft, which makes up the bulk of the jem'hadar forces from what I can tell. Again, these simulations are being undertaken by every command crew. The targets aren't too bad to combat, but the tasks themselves in this section of the game do drag on a bit. Not that it's entirely unrealistic, in fact I think it captures the frustration of being on standby rather well, engaged in numerous drills and trainings when you feel like you should be actually out there trying to make a difference. With the second simulation down, we return to Cav. She then tells us to report to Colonel Kubus Vol of the Bajoran militia. I've already covered the role the militia has in my post-Dominion Bajor video, so thankfully I don't have to go through all of that again. We find him in the local militia station, and he has two tasks for us as with the others, both aimed at keeping the peace. A spokesman in the main square is spouting anti-Federation sentiment that is riling up the crowds. His chants includes Bajor for Bajorans and the like, and he's fearful that Starfleet being here without warning is akin to the Cardassian occupation. This is the one we'll address. We'll make our way to the fountain in this square to find this individual, and while his concerns might to us seem frankly nuts, we have to remember that the Cardassians also approached Bajor in the spirit of hospitality, then they just didn't go. We can listen to what he says and address his concerns one by one.
This is our home! Bajor for Bajorans!
We start by reassuring him that one of the key Federation mandates is to protect the cultural heritage of its member worlds. Just because you're a Federation citizen doesn't mean you're not a Bajoran. He cites the loss of the Dejara caste system in opposition to that argument, and we rebuke that things like art are not affected by a caste system. Creatives will always create. They don't need to be told to do so. He expresses concern over the fact that their religion may be in peril, the Federation having no official beliefs or preferences. We tactfully point out that if he believes in the prophets, then they must still listen, regardless of what others think. He also points out how Starfleet and the KDF have already made themselves at home, just as the Cardassians did, and we stress that this is all temporary, and that if the local governments want, we'll leave behind or remove any modifications we make at Bajoran discretion. The exchange continues like this, covering medical centres to holosuites to the loss of resources from the occupation still affecting some areas of Bajor to pollution, and the affirmation that the Federation has already been trying to heal these issues. Eventually he stands down, and I've got to admit to some personal irritation. I understand where he's coming from, but Bajor has been a Federation world for 25 years already, and this is the first time things don't go to plan and there's a mob. The next thing we have to do is check on the Orb of Prophecy and Change at the temple, an orb which we returned, I might add. Oh well, last time I was here I had an experience with it. Let's just hope that doesn't happen again. Oh damn it.
You are not grateful. We saved Bajor at the Cisco's insistence. It cost him dearly.
We moved the fleet, but we needed to put it back.
A hand that remains closed
ceases to be a hand.
The fleet needs to exist, as you must return.
Okay. Thinking of what they said though, they moved the fleet at Cisco's insistence, and that a hand that remains closed ceases to be a hand. A closed hand is a fist. So are they talking about all these wars, the constant warfare that has engulfed the quadrant? Then why add to it with a Dominion fleet?
Peace and quiet. That's what we need.
I think you might be right on the money actually. Our final task for the day is to try to eavesdrop on DS9 through a subspace array we've set up. In order to do this, we're going to have to scan through every frequency across different ranges. We can pick up some interesting things before we stumble on the correct open line. Oh, that's not the one. Eventually, a bartender at Quark's answers. His name is Hadron, and we've joined his personal hidden subspace channel that he uses for legitimate business. We ask him about the jem'hadar, and he tells us they're awful customers. Hadron says that Loris hasn't unleashed the jem'hadar on the people remaining on the station yet or anything. In fact, she's been pretty amiable to them, although policing with an iron heel. He also mentions that he's overheard things. Karokan and Loris were apparently expecting another Dominion fleet to arrive and a founder, and they talk as if the Dominion War never ended. They've been searching the station for a changeling captive and interrogating anyone left behind. We thank Hadron and return to Commander Achebe. She informs us that we are now prepared to communicate with DS9 and Loris, and Captain Kurland is waiting for us to join the talks. So, they think the Dominion War's still on, right? Let's see how this goes.
Who is this? What do you want?
Let's not be so hasty, Karukan. They obviously went to a great deal of trouble to contact us. I am Loris of the Dominion, temporary governor of Deep Space Nine. How can I help you?
Thank you for agreeing to talk, Loris. I am Captain James Kurland of the Federation Space Station Deep Space Nine. It is my hope that we can find a peaceful resolution to this conflict.
Of course, Captain. You want your station back. But this is a war, and your station is my prize.
I know this will be hard for you to accept, but there is no war. It's been over for decades. Your fleet was diverted when you attempted to pass through the wormhole. The prophets... There is a great deal we have to explain, but please understand, we are not your enemies.
I am not a fool, Captain. We have reviewed the records in DS9's databanks. Why should I believe this fantasy of prophets and time travel? Show me proof that what you say is true.
Alright then, we can show her video footage from the end of the Dominion War, or discuss the finer points of wormhole theory, including time distortion, or read her the Treaty of Bajor. As much as I'd love to do those last two, I think visual evidence would work better in this case.
The Dominion War continued after a combined Starfleet and Klingon force retook DS9. When the Romulans entered the war on our side, things began to turn. The Dominion recruited the Breen to their cause, but the disease that was attacking the Founders put them on the defensive. They ultimately retreated out of most of the Alpha Quadrant, creating a defense perimeter in Cardassian space. Soon after, a Cardassian official named Damar led a rebellion on Cardassia Prime, breaking the standoff. The Dominion was forced to surrender.
Do not try to deceive me. That cannot be what happened. Why should I believe these recordings are real?
Good point, but we know from Hadron that she is confused, so we push the point home. We can ask her to check with any of the other species involved in the war. We all have the same story.
You say the Klingons are your enemies now, but you show me recordings made by one of their starships? I cannot accept this as proof.
Well, why not? Fine, we share our historical documentation with her so she can look at it herself.
Enough! I will consider your arguments carefully, but you must understand that I am under orders as well. The Founders gave me specific instructions before I left the Gamma Quadrant. I accept that may have been many years ago. Nevertheless, mere time cannot countermand the commands of the gods. We are attempting to contact the Dominion in the Gamma Quadrant. As of yet, we have been unsuccessful. Until I speak to a Founder and receive new orders, we will remain here. Deep Space Nine belongs to the Dominion.
Well, shit. We talk things over with the commander, who's of the same mind. Currently, it doesn't matter what Loris thinks, we need to take back the station, but there are other factors at play here, such as how would the current day Dominion handle us just destroying this pocket of their forces. It would be a horrid end if more blood is shed over this confusion. Loris seems to have come around to her predicament, but the Vorta are genetically incapable of going against a Founder's orders, and her orders haven't changed. A messy situation indeed. There has to be a better way out. So, Thank you for watching this episode of the Star Trek Online story series, and I hope you'll be back next time for the ever-expanding narrative of Star Trek Online, as we try to work this one out. I've been Rick, thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you later. Goodbye.